America didn't start with freedom or revolution. It started with survival and near disaster. In 1607, over 100 English settlers landed in Virginia and founded Jamestown, the first permanent English colony. But they were unprepared. No food, no clean water, and constant conflict with local Powhatan tribes. The starving time hit in 1609. Settlers ate rats, leather, even corpses. Out of 500, only 60 survived. Jamestown was on the edge of collapse until tobacco saved them. By 1612, John Rolfe's tobacco crops became the colony's lifeline, turning it into England's cash cow. By 1617, the colony was exporting thousands of pounds of tobacco. But this success came at a price: the beginning of large-scale land grabs, exploitation, and slave labor.
America's second decade wasn't just survival. It was the birth of a nation's darkest contradictions. By 1619, Jamestown was thriving on tobacco profits while creating the Virginia House of Burgesses, America's first elected assembly and the seed of democratic government. Yet that same pivotal year, the first enslaved Africans arrived on Virginia's shores, beginning centuries of human bondage that would define the nation. As settlers pushed further into native lands, tensions exploded in 1622 when the Powhatan Confederacy attacked, killing nearly a quarter of all colonists. The brutal English retaliation set a pattern of violent displacement that would continue for centuries. These formative years reveal America's fundamental paradox: democracy and oppression born in the same moment.
The next decade? New colonies, religious rebels, and bloody wars with native tribes. In the late 1620s, English settlements spread rapidly beyond Virginia. Massachusetts Bay Colony was founded by Puritans seeking religious freedom, determined to build their city on a hill. But freedom wasn't for everyone. Puritan leaders expelled dissenters like Roger Williams and Anne Hutchinson, who later helped shape Rhode Island. In 1636, tensions exploded into the Pequot War in New England. Colonists, with native allies, massacred Pequot villages, nearly wiping out the tribe. One of the first major Native American wars in English America. Expansion, religion, and bloodshed. This was America's foundation.
By the 1640s, the American colonies were growing fast, but so were the cracks beneath them. Massachusetts, Connecticut, Virginia. English settlements kept expanding. Colonists built farms, churches, and trading ports, shipping tobacco and furs back to Europe. But this prosperity was powered by unfree labor. African slaves were arriving in growing numbers, while indentured servants, poor Europeans working 5 to 7 years to pay off their passage, often died before tasting freedom. Meanwhile, civil war erupted in England between king and parliament, leaving colonial leaders questioning their loyalties. The colonies weren't just surviving. They were establishing systems of power, wealth, and control that would shape America's future. Discover the hidden decade that shaped America forever. While England collapsed into civil war in the 1650s with King Charles I executed and Oliver Cromwell establishing a republic, the American colonies were essentially abandoned to govern themselves. This neglect transformed colonial America. Massachusetts tightened Puritan control, persecuting religious minorities, while Maryland pioneered religious tolerance for Catholics. Meanwhile, colonial ports exploded with trade in tobacco, sugar, rum, and slaves. As wealth grew, so did inequality and dependence on enslaved labor. These forgotten years weren't just chaotic. They laid the foundation for America's eventual rise to global power. The moment that changed America forever. 1664, when the English seized New Amsterdam from the Dutch, renaming it New York. This wasn't just a name change. It was England claiming one of the Atlantic's most valuable trade ports. Meanwhile, the dark reality of American history was taking shape. Virginia and other colonies began passing laws that defined enslaved people as property, not humans. deepening racial divides that would scar the nation for centuries. Yet despite conflicts, colonial populations exploded as English settlers, enslaved Africans, and European immigrants transformed the wilderness into what would become America. In just decades, these scattered settlements evolved into a powerful Atlantic network that would soon challenge the greatest empire on Earth. The next decade, war, rebellion, and the first cracks in colonial loyalty. In 1670, the Carolina colony was founded, opening up the South. Meanwhile, European wars spilled into America. England fought the Dutch in the Second Anglo-Dutch War, reshaping colonial trade. In 1676, Virginia exploded. Nathaniel Bacon led angry settlers in a rebellion against Governor Berkeley, burning Jamestown to the ground. Why? Anger over native conflicts, inequality, and government corruption. Bacon's rebellion was crushed, but elites learned a lesson. To control the lower classes, they leaned harder into racial divisions, accelerating African slavery while cutting back rights for poor whites. The secret power struggle that shaped America started long before 1776. After years of colonial freedom, England tightened its grip by creating the Dominion of New England, merging multiple colonies under one royal governor, Sir Edmund Andros. His harsh rule crushed town meetings, enforced unpopular laws, and infuriated Puritan leaders. Meanwhile, Quaker colonies like Pennsylvania emerged as havens of religious tolerance. Behind it all, global chess moves. England's tensions with France and Spain dragged American colonies into dangerous imperial rivalries, planting seeds for future wars. By 1687, colonial patience was wearing thin. The stage was set for rebellion, and the first sparks of American identity were already burning. This forgotten chapter changed everything.
The next decade, revolution in England and chaos in the colonies. In 1688, the Glorious Revolution rocked England. King James II was overthrown, and William and Mary took the throne. Across the Atlantic, colonists saw their chance. In Boston, colonists overthrew Governor Andros and dismantled the hated Dominion of New England. Other colonies also saw power struggles as local leaders pushed back against royal control. But peace didn't last. In 1689, England and France went to war, and their colonies were dragged into brutal frontier fighting, known as King William's War. By 1697, America was caught in global war and local rebellion.
The 1700s begin, and the American colonies are bigger, richer, and more dangerous than ever. In 1697, King William's War ended, but peace was shaky. English colonists in New England and the South were constantly on edge, facing raids from French forces and their native allies. By the early 1700s, the transatlantic slave trade exploded. Charleston, South Carolina, became a major port for enslaved Africans, fueling the plantation economy. Tobacco, rice, and indigo were big business. England passed new trade laws, part of the Navigation Acts, trying to control colonial commerce. Smuggling became widespread as colonists resisted imperial control and chased profits.